Hey everyone, welcome back to Lisa's Book Nook. We're reading The Scourge by A.G. Henley, and we're on chapter 12. I spend the afternoon wandering around Kulkuna with Cora and Biga. The doll knows an astonishing amount about the people in the village. She tells me all about them as we pass homes and workplaces, and I'm struck by how familiar the stories sound. She could be talking about our community, with one glaring exception. At home, our conversations all come around to the fleshies eventually, but Cora rarely mentions them. I catch myself listening for the alarm calls, warnings that the scourge is coming, as I would have at home. What Wareham told me is still almost impossible to believe. I'm tempted to ask Cora if she knows how Kakuna is protected, but it seems devious to interrogate a child. People seem friendlier after the gathering. They speak to us as we go by, calling me by name. I meet some girls that sound about my age by the storehouse. They are curious, especially about my home and what it's like to be sightless. We chat for a few minutes, answering each other's questions, but one of them, Kaya, Cora calls her Kai, doesn't speak, even to say hello. Biga tells me later that she keeps to herself, but the doll won't say more. It's uncharacteristic for Biga. Cora leads me to check on Perry late in the afternoon. I sit by his side, holding his hand. I long to tell him about Kakuna, about the people, and how they can live in the trees or on the ground, and most of all, how they're protected from the scourge. But he doesn't stir, and I can only stay a few minutes in the heavily incensed room before I start to feel drowsy and a little sick to my stomach. Nirang sits outside. The smell of something, cloves, drifts around my head. I laugh. You could just go breathe the air in there for a few minutes instead of smoking out here. A good pipe is one of the pleasures of an old man, he says. How did you find your friend? I frown. The same. Try not to worry. He inhales and releases a slow puff of smoke. I hear you will stay with Katie now. I'll take you there. Cora was called home for her dinner. We stroll through the trees while the sun sinks lower, as if setting down to its evening meal as well. I hear the rattle of wooden dishes and a low murmur of conversation. It sounds like home. Do you have a family, Nirang? He stops to empty his pipe, tapping it against a tree. I hear him crush the remains of the herbs and spices into the dry ground. Very dry, now that I think about it. I can't remember the last time it rained. A grave illness swept through the Anuna years ago. Many were sick, and many died. Despite my efforts, my partner, Yendi, was among them. His voice sounds more resigned than sad. Her name meant sun in our language. My son is Kanal, sky. Yendi and Kanal, my son and my sky. Kanal's grown now, a few years older than you. I'm sorry about Yendi. As am I, but like the legend of the flowers, life goes on and hope blooms again. We walk a little further among the trees and pause in front of what must be Katie's home. The door squeaks as it opens, and the aroma of cooking food greets us. I brought Fennel to you, Katie. Would you like to stay for dinner, Nirang? Thank you, no. I need to speak to Kanal before he leaves with the hunting party. There's much to do to prepare for the Feast of Deliverance. Then he says to me, I'll be checking on your friend in the morning if you'd like to visit again. I'll bring her, Katie offers. That's okay, I think I can find it myself, I say, not wanting to create work for her. After only one day, Nirang says. Impressive. I'm beginning to understand how you found your way through the dark place. Oh, Perry helped. He had torches, and we used cranberries to mark our path. I meant your tenacity, young one, he says as he shuts the door. I turn to Katie, smiling self-consciously after Nirang's compliment. Would you like me to show you around my home so that you know where things are? She asks. I accept her offer. Her home has smooth dirt floors and wooden walls, like ours, but it's larger. It has 2 rooms, a sleeping room and a sitting area, situated around a small fire pit. I wash my hands in the basin against the wall as Katie ladles our dinners onto plates. We take them outside to eat. I hope you will be comfortable here, she says when we're settled. I already am. It reminds me of home. And you miss your home, no doubt. Will you tell me about it? I describe our part of the forest. I tell her about Aloe, Elin, and my friends. I tell her of the freedom of summer afternoons swimming in the waterhole, my love of dancing and baking bread, the expectant silence of the caves that makes me feel they're only quiet when no one is around to hear their hushed conversations. Conjuring my home helps me feel less homesick. The pungent scent of the greenhearts and the breeze tossing the leaves overhead almost convince me I'm there. It sounds like a peaceful place, she says. It could be without the sick ones, or the Lofties, I almost say, before thinking of Perry. I take another bite instead. Leftover rabbit stew, and it's still delicious. So, what's the feast of deliverance that Nerang mentioned? Every summer, the Inuna celebrate the anniversary of finding Kokuna and the deliverance from the fate of the sick ones. The hunting party will gather enough meat for all, and will harvest the first summer crops in preparation. I swatted a mosquito buzzing close to my ear. When is it? At the next full moon, and we have much to do before then, as Nerang said. Would you like to come to the gardens with me tomorrow? We could certainly use your help. I'd love to, after I check on Perry. We laugh because she said after you visit your friend, of course, at the same time. We talk through the cool evening until the mosquito's persistent questing drives us indoors. Katie is a good listener, quiet, but with a surprisingly exuberant laugh. I like her. As I fall asleep, I realize I did most of the talking. She said very little herself. The incense is almost gone when I visit Perry the next morning. Nerang says the fresh air should encourage him to wake. He tells me he'll send someone to find me when he does, so I go to the gardens with Katie. I enjoy wandering through the rows, handling and sniffing each plant as we tend them. Many of the herbs and vegetables are familiar, like the carrots and potatoes in the stew. Others are foreign to me. Katie tells me their names and uses. I try the leaf of something called a turnip, and make a face at the bitter taste. She assures me the roots are delicious when cooked, and I tell her I'll take her word for it. At one point I smell rosemary, and I can almost hear Aloe scolding Elin for throwing clods of dirt at his friends in the next row. Homesickness backhands me, leaving me off balance the rest of the morning. Cora finds me in the gardens and invites me to their home for lunch. I meet her little brother, Daryl, and Erika's partner, Nerang. Nerang has a big booming voice. He sounds huge, but somehow he's not intimidating. I like him right away. He reminds me of Bear. Nerang, Cora, and Daryl wrestle after we eat. The children giggle as their father pretends to be felled like a tree by their punches. Cora and Erika ask if I'd like to help them with the laundry duties. I agree, reluctantly when I learn that Inuna hang the wet laundry to dry up in the sunlit trees. We take the ascending platform, and they lead me to a wide, sunny area wedged between triangular points of 3 sturdy trees. Somehow it feels safer than the narrow walkways, and I relax. Ropes crisscross the space, giving me something to hang on to. My ribs barely ache now as I raise my arms to hang clothes over the ropes to dry. Other men and women join us, sharing news about their families as they work. They steer the conversation to other topics when I ask about the sick ones, but there's no undercurrent of fear as there is at home. I'm struck by how easily the people of Kokuna live. Later, Katie and I visit the fire and eat our dinner. I tell her about my day and that I'm worried I haven't heard anything about Perry. You said he's not one of your people, that he belongs to the other group, yet you clearly have a connection with him. I thought I'd hate him before I met him. I wanted to hate him. Everyone despises the Lofties, but I struggle to put my feelings into words. I feel different about him now, and different about the Lofties because of him. I see, she says, in a way that tells me she understands more than I'm saying, maybe more than I know myself. It makes me want to change the subject. So I've told you all about my family, but you haven't mentioned yours. I'm surprised she lives alone. She sounds younger than Aloe, but certainly old enough to have a partner and children. I did have a family once, but I lost them. She hesitates. You see, I haven't always. The door bangs open, making us both jump. What is it, Kai? Katie says. The girl speaks in a flat, clipped voice, the words spilling out like dried beans from a sack. Nerang sent me to tell the Lorena to come quickly. Her friend is awake. I hurry through the night, not waiting for Kai to guide me, trusting my sense of direction. When I reach the shelter, I shove open the door without knocking. I can still smell a trace of the burning herbs. Perry? Nerang, is he okay? Yes, young one, come in. I hope Kai didn't alarm you. I wasn't sure how long your friend would be awake. As it turns out, he's refusing to ever sleep again until he sees you. Finn? Perry's voice is raspy but lucid. I rush over to him. My fingers flutter over his face and smooth his hair. I blink back tears of relief. He catches my hand and pulls it to his lips. Well, Nerang says with a small cough, I'll be outside if I'm needin'. He closes the door as he leaves. How are you? I ask, pressing my hand to Perry's cheek. Never better, he croaks. I kneel next to the bed and feel him stiffen. Who did that to your face? I sigh. I did. He touches his forehead. You look terrible. And that's a terrible thing to say to a girl. He chuckles. You're really here. I'm not dreaming? Not unless I'm dreaming too, I say. He shifts his body and sucks in a breath through his clenched teeth. I sincerely hope your dreams aren't this painful. My smile vanishes. I'm sorry. What can I do? Nothing. Reminds me I'm still alive. Because of you. Nerang saved your life, not me. Who is Nerang? And where the hell are we? Perry whispers. He's an herbalist. Wait until you hear about Kakuna. You won't believe it. It's protected. I don't know how yet, but Wirram said he'd show us soon. Back up. Who are Kakuna and Wirram? Start at the beginning. The caves are the last thing I remember. My head feels like it's crammed with dandelion fluff. I'll tell you as much as I can, but we may not have much time. Nerang is big on resting. I describe our short, treacherous ride in the underground river. Part water dragon, like I said, Perry teases, and how Cora found us. I tell him the story of the Yanuna. He's as astonished as I was to hear that Kakuna is safe from the Scourge and that the people live wherever they choose. Where are you staying then? He asks. On the ground at Katie's. I hate to admit it, but I don't think I like being in the trees. It scares me. Something scares you? I don't believe it. What really scared me was thinking you weren't going to make it, I whisper. Tears threaten to flow again. Finn, we're out of the caves. We're alive. We're okay. He tries to push himself up, but falls back, stifling a groan. I wince. I'm so sorry. I wished I'd have done so many things differently. Maybe this wouldn't have happened. You might not have been hurt at all if it wasn't for me. He smooths the tear away. I didn't know you were such a martyr. Please stop blaming yourself. Who can I blame then? How about that Nerang guy? Let's blame him. Perry! The door opens. I hate to interrupt, but I must change his bandages, and he needs his rest. I flash a grin at Perry and mutter, Told you. He takes my hand again. Come back soon? I'll need someone to show me around when I get on my feet. I grimace at him. Go easy. You've been unconscious for days. And I'm not going to waste any more time lying around. He sounds so confident I can't help smiling again. I squeeze Nerang's arm as he walks me out. You're wonderful, Nerang. I thought you might be surprised at how well he sounds. I nudge him. Maybe he won't need my strength after all. Don't be too sure, he says, suddenly serious. I want to ask what he means, but he steps back inside, leaving me standing alone in the soft spotlight of the moon. I wake early the next morning and slip out to check on Perry. He's asleep, but Nerang's there, mixing up a batch of paste of calendula and comfrey he's been applying to the wound. Considering all the fuss the man makes about people resting, he doesn't seem to get much sleep himself. He promises to send for me when Perry wakes. Dew wets my feet as I walk back to Katie's. She stayed up waiting for me the night before to hear how Perry was doing. I appreciate her concern. And she's the only one who calls Perry by name instead of by your friend. Katie and I are cleaning our breakfast dishes when Kai comes again to tell me Perry's awake. I wonder why she's Nirang's messenger. Maybe they're related, or she's his apprentice or something. Your friend certainly has his appetite back, Nirang says as I duck into Perry's shelter a few minutes later. This is thirds, is it not? You said I needed to eat to get my strength back. How else can I do it? Perry mumbles from the corner of his mouth. I say get your strength back, not make yourself sick, Nirang says. Right now, I'm only sick of being an invalid. It's time for me to get up. Are you sure you're ready, I ask. Give yourself time, Nirang urges. I still have one good leg. The other one will have to find a way to keep up with it. I hear him set the dish down and push himself off the bed. I step closer. Perry, maybe you should. Too late. He collapses and shrugs away from my hand. Will you stop being such an idiot? Let me help you. I put my shoulder under his like I did in the caves, and we stagger around the shelter. I can hear his teeth grinding in pain, but he refuses to stop until we've made a complete circle back to the bed. After a minute of rest, he's up again. The second time around seems a little easier for him. As we walk, I notice a few little differences like his shirt. It's clean, for one thing. He must have had a change of clothes. He's too thin, but he smells really good. His familiar honeyed scent mingled with mint. Nirang probably used the same wash that he used to clean me up. I lean in, a little closer, inhaling it. After a few more laps around the cramped room, Nirang insists Perry rest. Perry insists he rest outside. I need some fresh air after all that incense, he mutters. Pig-headed, isn't he? Nirang says to me. You have no idea. Nirang leaves us with a warning that he'll be back soon to wrestle Perry to bed if necessary. We sit down outside, our backs against the trunk of an impossibly wide, furrowed greenheart tree. He describes how the village looks from here. Petra would love to see this, he says. Those platforms they use to carry people up and down, the intricacy of their walkways, it's spectacular. So are their gardens, I say. They're so much more developed than ours. They have all the vegetables and flowers we do, and more. Then again, they don't have to abandon their crops every time the sick ones, the flesh-eaters, come. Sick ones, is that what they call them? Runa in their language. And they call the caves the dark place. They got that right. A bird screeches and Perry startles. I can't relax, stuck on the ground and barely able to walk. My ears kind of tingle all the time, listening for the scourge. My mouth curls with the irony of a Lofty experience for the first time what all Groundlings feel, practically from infancy. I know what you mean. I guess you would, his voice is tinged with apology. We listen as people walk by, chattering to each other in their first language, followed by a group of children playing some kind of chase game. Their excited screams remind me of the night of the summer solstice. It seems like seasons have gone by since then. So, how are people treating you? Perry asks. When he's not babying me or trying to suffocate me with incense, Nirang seems nice enough. I jab him with my elbow. Perry, Nirang's been amazing. Neither of us were in great shape when we got here, and now look at us. He snorts, and a second later, I get the joke. My head is still horribly bruised, my ribs are wrapped, and part of his leg is missing. Yeah, we look great, like a couple of patched-up corpses. He presses his shoulder into mine, but I'm grateful to him for taking care of you when I couldn't. I flush. Really, everyone's been wonderful. Cora and her family, and especially Katie. I want you to meet them. You'll like them. Sure, he says absent-mindedly. The people here, they're different. What do you mean? The way they sound, how they look, he says. The people do sound different because of their accents, but I wasn't aware they looked any different. I ask him what he means. Some are like me, he explains, with fair hair and light eyes, light-skinned. Others are darker like you. Some have dark skin and light hair. Some have skin as black as the night sky. I guess it doesn't surprise me. Wareham said plenty of strangers have come over the years. And if the exchange proves anything, it's that children don't always look like their parents. It's a lot to take in, he says. One minute I'm pretty damn sure I'm about to die. The next I wake up in a village of survivors, and they're protected, and they're living here like one big happy family. I don't know what I expected when I came with you to find the waters, but it wasn't this. I hesitate, chewing on my lip. I'm not sure this is the right time to bring this up. Perry, do you remember how you told me in the caves that there are less of you? I remember what else he told me in the caves about watching me, and my face heats up again. It seems like Kokuna might be what you're looking for. Your people. There's still a lot I don't know about it, but I do know it's safe and the people are kind. He nudges me again. Trying to get rid of us, Groundling? I smile. With you Lofties gone, we can stay in your trees when the Scourge comes, and not have to hide in the caves. Less accidents with arrows, too. I thought you hated the trees. Let's see. I tap my finger to my lips. Stay on the ground with the flesh eaters and hide in the caves, or live safely in the trees. I think I can get over my fear of heights. So you wouldn't mind if I left home for good? He's still joking, but there's a serious note to his question. I'm thinking out loud, that's all. Well, he pushes himself to his feet, using the trunk of the tree for support. I want to take a closer look at the village, especially those walkways. And since that will involve actually being able to walk, I'm going back to the shelter completely unassisted. Perry, be careful. I jump up and follow uselessly behind him as he hobbles across the grass. I'm good. It's no he stumbles. Rain catches him. Pig-headedness may help you heal, but stupidity will not. It's time to rest now. Perry mutters something that sounds like, I take back the nice part. We finally get him settled back in bed, grumbling all the way, and he's still asleep when I come back to visit him later that afternoon. Ring laughs, saying pig-headedness can only take you so far. Well, that's the end of chapter 12, folks. I guess I'll get it uploaded for you, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye for now.